Welcome to Silver Series Secrets, the video tutorial series that helps you use Silver Series operator interface terminals with other Watlow products. In this installment, you will learn how to connect EZZONE controllers to the OIT via Ethernet, set up an EZZONE gateway for Modbus TCP communications, create a new Silver Series project, configure the Modbus TCP IP master communications driver, and address data in the EZZONE products connected to the gateway. We'll be using a Silver Series OIT powered by a DC power supply, a laptop computer with EasyWare 5000 and EZZONE configurator software installed, an EZZONE RM system consisting of two RM control modules, an RM scanner module, and an RM access module with Ethernet gateway. The OIT and access module and the computer are connected to an Ethernet switch. The RM access module is also connected to the laptop computer via a USB to 485 converter. In order for the OIT to communicate with the EZZONE controllers connected to the access module, we'll need to set up the OIT's IP address and subnet mask, set the access module's IP address and other Modbus communications parameters, and set up the access module's gateway so we can access the parameters in the controllers and scanner via Modbus. To set the OIT's IP address, power it up and touch the lower right corner of the screen to see the menu bar. Touch the Setup button and enter the password. By default, this is 111111. You may have to touch the password field to make sure the numbers you type are entered there. Since this will be a network with just the OIT and access module and no resource for getting IP addresses automatically, choose IP address Get from Below to set a fixed address and enter an appropriate address. This address is from the range of addresses set aside for fixed addresses on small private networks. Since this network will not be connected to any other networks, the gateway setting is not important. Depending on what will be connected in your network, you may need to use different settings. Next, using EZZONE configurator, we'll set up the EZZONE RM access module. Connect the computer to the access module via RS-485. Here we use a USB to 485 converter. The EZZONE RM modules are connected together at their backplane connectors. Each is configured for standard bus communications and set to a unique address. The access module is set to address 17, displayed as J. The control modules are set to addresses 1 and 2, and the scanner to address 3. Launch EZZONE configurator. Choose Configure a device while communicating with it. Click Next. Select the COM port. Click the Advanced button to make sure the range of addresses to be scanned includes the access module. If you're using an RUI gateway, you'll want to be sure the program scans for remote user interfaces. Click OK and click Next. Choose the access module, the device with the part number that starts with RMA. To set the access module's IP address, on the Setup page, choose the Communications To menu. Set the Modbus word order to word low high. Since we're using fixed IP addresses, set the IP address mode to fixed IP address. Set the IP fixed address to the next address for our network. We'll have to cycle power to the access module to make this address change take effect, but we'll do that after we finish configuring it. Set the subnet mask to the appropriate value. Make sure Modbus TCP Enable is set to Yes. Disable Ethernet IP unless you plan to use that protocol with another device. Set display units to the temperature scale you want. And set non-volatile save to Yes so that parameter values you change via the OIT will be retained in the controller's non-volatile memory. An RUI gateway or an RM access modules gateway can connect up to 16 other EZZONE devices such as RM control modules to an Ethernet network. The gateway function is enabled and configured using the menus on the local remote gateway page. The local remote gateway instance numbers correspond to the standard bus addresses of the connected EZZONE modules. So the connection to the RM control module with address 1 is configured on the local remote gateway 1 menu. The second RM controller's connection is configured on the local remote gateway 2 menu. And the RM scanner's connection is configured on the local remote gateway 3 menu. For each device, enable it and set the Modbus address offset. The offset for the first controller will be 0. We have to carefully consider the offsets for the other two controllers because these offsets determine how many controllers will be able to communicate via the gateway and which parameters you'll be able to access in each. The offset we set for the second controller limits the range of addresses that can be accessed via the gateway in the first controller. For example, if we set the second controller's offset to 1000, only addresses 0 to 999 will be accessible in the first controller, and the second controller's data will start at address 1000. In this tutorial, we'll set up the gateway to allow access to the process value, control mode, and set point for loops 1 to 3 in both the RM control modules. Consulting the manual, you can find the address for analog input 1's process value is 360, loop 1's control mode is 2220, and loop 1's closed loop set point is 2500. Since the set point has the highest address, that's the one we have to pay attention to in selecting the gateway offset. Note that for each Modbus address in the manual, an instance offset is also included. That offset is used to determine the addresses for the other analog inputs and control loops. The instance offset listed for set point is 80, so the address for the second loop's closed loop set point is 2500 plus 80, 2580, and the address for the third loop's closed loop set point is 2580 plus 80, 2660. To be able to access the closed loop set point for loop 3 in the first RM control module, we must offset the second control module's Modbus addresses by more than 2660. Let's set the offset to 5000. That gives us some additional room in case we decide later to access other parameters we haven't anticipated at this point. For the offset for the third module, the scanner module, let's offset its addresses by the same amount so that the same range of parameters is accessible in the two RM control modules. To allow 5000 addresses for the second controller, set the scanner's offset to 5000 higher. That's 10,000. Close EZZONE configurator. Cycle power on the RM access module to make the IP address change take effect. Launch EasyBuilder 5000. If you have previously edited a project, it opens automatically, so from the File menu, choose New. Otherwise, you will already see this dialog. Select your model. I'm using the 7-inch unit and will create my screens in landscape mode. With the Use Template option set, click OK. The new project has two devices, the OIT called Local HMI and a Modbus RTU master. Since in this project the OIT will communicate using Modbus TCP over Ethernet, let's change the Modbus RTU master device by selecting it and clicking Settings. EasyBuilder 5000 refers to any device OITs communicate with as a PLC because that's a common type of device used with them. For PLC type, choose Modbus TCP Master. Name the device. Since you will add a Modbus TCP device for each IP address that must be accessed, it makes sense to use a name that helps you identify what will be communicated with at that address. The PLC interface setting is automatically changed to Ethernet. Click Settings and enter the IP address of the EZZONE RM access module. Click OK, OK, and OK again. Now we can start creating an interface. Add a numeric display for the first process value in the control module with address 1. Enter a description. For PLC name, choose EZZONE RM Access Module. For address, choose 4X and enter 361. You must add 1 to the address indicated in the EZZONE manuals. On the Numeric Format tab, for data format, choose 32-bit float. Click OK and place the field. To create a label, select the text tool and enter the label text. You can go through the same steps to create another field for the second control module, but it's easier to copy and paste. Select the first field, press Ctrl-C to copy, and Ctrl-V to paste. Put the copy where you want it, and click the background to deselect it. Now double-click the copy to edit its settings. Change the description and the address. The address of the first loop's process value in the second control module is offset by 5000, since that's what we set the offset to in the gateway. So insert a 5 to make it 5361. Similarly, we can make a copy of the label and edit it. Select it, copy, paste, drag, deselect it, and double-click to edit it. Make the change, and click OK. To make a field to display the first analog input value from the scanner, let's just make another copy. To access the first analog input value in the scanner, consult the manual and find the Modbus address is 380. To that we have to add 1 to use it with the OIT, and add 10,000 because that's the offset for the scanner module we entered in the gateway. So the address is 10,381. Again, copy, paste, deselect and edit, and add a label. After compiling and downloading the project, the OIT displays the process values from the 3 RM modules that it gets from the RM Access module. We can add fields and other screen objects that read and set other values in the RM system as long as the values are addressable in the range that we configured for the gateway to support for each module. Let's review. To set up Modbus TCP communications between a Silver Series OIT and EZZONE products through a gateway in an access module or RUI, you must set the IP address and subnet mask in the OIT, enable Modbus TCP, and set the gateway's Modbus communications parameters including the IP address, the subnet mask, the display units, and the non-volatile save preference. And finally, enable a local remote gateway and set the offset for each device that will communicate through the gateway. These can be done in any order, but all 3 must be done, and don't forget to cycle the power to the RUI or access module if you change the IP address. The steps for creating a new Silver Series project that communicates with EZZONE products via a Modbus TCP gateway are: create a new project in EasyBuilder 5000, change the Modbus RTU device that appears by default to a Modbus TCP IP master, enter the IP address of the access module or RUI gateway in the Modbus TCP IP master, and remember, when addressing data in EZZONE devices, add 1 plus the instance offsets plus the gateway offset to the Modbus address found in the EZZONE user's manual. We hope you found this installment of Silver Series Secrets helpful. We'll explore additional topics in other installments.